Greetings and salutations, and welcome to White Devil Wednesday on TIR, where we're bringing back a blast from the past. That is myself and C. Derek Vaughn's wonderful show, Gaming Materialists, where we talk about RPGs and nerd stuff, as well as tabletop gaming. And we have a wonderful guest this evening for you. And I should note, Jason is away this evening. As a non-White Devil, he is avoiding White Devil Wednesdays. So it's just going to be myself and the one, the only, the Angry Badger off the left, C. Derek Vaughn. Oh, and here's a baby. Hey, Vaughn, how are you doing? Welcome back to TIR. It's fantastic to be finally back on the air with you to talk about things gaming related. We did try this kind of with our Dune conversation, but it ended up in a pretty dark place after about 3 hours. So if you have not seen that, go to Vonvlog, sign up for Vonvlog, join the Patreon, because we aren't releasing that for public. There is some choice language on there. I may have used the R word, but in a context that was entirely legitimate. I just want to emphasize that. I was not referring to people with Cardi B level of reading skills. So today on White Devil Wednesday, we are joined by a personal friend of Jason Myles, Joshua Citarella, who is an artist, and he is also a game designer. I'm going to show you a little picture before we bring him on. A new game here for us to see called Class Fantasy. So Class Fantasy is a game where it's kind of, I guess, it's a card-based game. If you know Magic the Gathering, I suppose it's vaguely in the Magic the Gathering realms, but from what I can tell, it's a little bit more like the classic card game Citadels. If anybody knows the game Citadels, it might work. That's perhaps like a better analogy, but it is a card-based, fantasy-themed, class-based game. So, I don't have a soundboard, so Vaughn, would you be the soundboard and make the noise for me, like the... Please welcome the one, the only, our fellow White Devil, Joshua. Welcome to TIR, Joshua. Welcome.
Hey, gamers.
Gaming.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thank you for taking the time to come on to talk about this game. So let's start with basics. Who the hell are you, Joshua? Why do I care about who you are? And how do you know Jason?
Right. Yeah, I'll give a quick background, because I think my particular work and the field that I come from is probably a little bit different than most of the guests that people have on podcasts, especially those dealing with politics. I'm an artist. I studied art. I used to teach in art schools. And in around, I want to say, 2018, 2020, my career started to take this turn where I started producing less things that were hung in galleries and museums, and instead started to publish on my own in the form of essays and podcasts and books. And I still make artworks and show in museum and institutional contexts and so on. But I decided to open up my practice to something that was much more on the internet rather than in the academy. Particularly what I was writing about at that time was emergent behavior on social media among Gen Z meme posters. So I was writing about kids that were at the time between ages 12 to 17, and I would see them maybe a bit older than our new guest here, but the kids that were essentially too young to drive, but were posting political materials on the internet. And I conducted a series of, one-on-one interviews with them, over Discord and chats and all sorts of things. And then I compiled that work into a book to try and map the landscape of emergent political sentiment among kids that were hyper fluent in internet communities and were, posting, consuming YouTube videos, podcasts, etc., and so on. And so what really kind of sparked the inspiration for this project specifically is that I would see people treat the internet meme posting space, social media platforms in general, as a massive MMORPG, massive multiplayer online role-playing game, where they would cosplay and LARP as different political ideologies. There's a classic meme that people might be familiar with called Flavors of Anarchy. Sometimes it's referred to as this. You've Derek shaking his head. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's so if people haven't seen it, just to kind of explain what this is, imagine every color of the rainbow. There's usually a little icon like a flag or what's called a pole ball, which is a character kind of cartoon of a political ideology. And you will have red and black anarcho-communism, red and green anarcho-primitivism, red and yellow anarcho-capitalism, mutualism, agorism, queer anarchy, anarcho-feminism, anarcho-transhumanism. There's a million different variations of this. So the conventional version of this begins with these kind of color and black balls, and you get to choose your character from all of these different edgy internet political ideologies. That to me struck me as something that was very similar to the character creation screen. So when you're logging into a game like World of Warcraft, for example, which was a huge part of my childhood. So I growing up, middle school, high school, and then into my college career, I played World of Warcraft very seriously. At the height of my college career, I was globally ranked in the top 1% of arenas in PvP, playing Rogue Mage Priest. I took it really seriously. Like, that was my job. Everything else was kind of a side project. I don't live that life anymore, unfortunately. I maybe one day I'll go back to it. But what was very peculiar to me is that there were people, around the age that I was when I started playing games, that they were faced with, graphically, just formally, it's very similar. Here's a lineup of different characters to choose from, and you have to imagine whether you identify, with the anarcho-transhumanist, for example, or the undead knight, which is it seems like a very direct parallel. Additionally, there's characters like let's say the paladin in Dungeons and Dragons, who is lawful good. He enforces the law, whatever. Is this maybe analogous to a police officer in the modern day analogy? There's all sorts of weird parallels between the role-playing space and the way that the game space is approached, especially evident among young people who are encountering this for the first time. So I wanted to take that very, very seriously. I wanted to take that as a serious premise, that the way that young people are approaching internet material and posting memes at these early stages is directly like they're playing a role-playing game. What made that really clear for me in the beginning of this is that I want to say the poster was around, I never interviewed them or spoke with them, but contextually, I would estimate they're around 14 or 15 years old. And they were posting from an anarcho-capitalist account, which I happen to think is just the absolute funniest bunch of lunatics on the internet. Their memes are always entertaining. He posted a meme, and in the caption it said, "If you like my content, make sure to follow me on my anarcho-primitivist account and also on my mutualist account." So we have we have one character here, or sorry, one poster, one individual who is posting three different, I would say, overlapping but largely exclusive ideological propaganda projects. And what this person is doing is essentially testing in real time the feedback of different communities to gauge where they as an individual align in this kind of role-playing process. So, it's interesting. There may be points of overlap between some of those things. Just to kind of give a little bit of context around these accounts, the anarcho-capitalist account is memes of like Hayek and Friedman and Lysander Spooner maybe on the edge, like kind of anti-authoritarian sentiments. And then the anarcho-primitivist account is people all the way from like James C. Scott to Kaczynski to John Zerzan, people like that. Mutualists, you have Proudhon. There's points where they could get fuzzy around the edges, but largely they're kind of exclusive worldviews that are non-overlapping. So I wanted to take that thing seriously. That became the inspiration for the game. And many years later, I guess that initial story I'm describing was probably in 2015 or 16 when I saw those posts. And it took me like 8 years to allow myself to have a little fun with the process and make this card game that we're going to talk about tonight. So excuse my long intro, but I think that story is really, it just opens up a lot for me, and it's a good introduction to the project.
when I first saw the game, I was like, someone apparently hung out with Tumblr users about 10 years ago, and
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
you have clarified that for me. That is indeed the case. Um, it is. I actually find both that element of the game and that element of contemporary culture both fascinating and a little bit interesting as a game mechanic. To go into a little bit, like I do think, as far as like young people go, letting them, as if we could stop them, LARP their
Right.
politics out is perfectly fine. Actually, I mean, like, um, but it is interesting where this goes, and it's something that Jason is constantly critiquing. Jason's big critique is like, well, so much of this stuff is politics that's actually like identitarian culture for like music, or what music was in the 80s and 90s for
Yep.
younger kids today.
Totally.
I do find it interesting how already, though, like some of these ideologies that you have in here have already feel a little bit out of like, well, I don't know that many primitivists anymore. But
Primitivists aren't cool anymore because people like toothpaste. They're like 3 days of trying to brush your teeth with tree bark. Gonna give that up pretty quickly.
But I did find that interesting as a way to market the game. I have to say the cards kind of trip me out. The art on the cards are both very good, but also like they're funny to imagine these characters that I'm used to dealing with online as like fantasy art. Cause I can't like the Thor bear as an anarcho primitivist is probably like my favorite thing ever. But
the art is it's kind of remarkable that some of the things fit so well into it. It's been an interesting thing because I am a practicing artist. Like that's my I'm my job, in that no one earns a living for making art, but it's a lifelong pursuit, and you have a presence in different institutions and so on. The images to me are kind of like they're like entertaining memes, I feel like, where they're pulled from this enormous data set. They're all made with like Midjourney and different types of like AI imaging tools that are pulling from this enormous data set of the genre of fantasy art. And so what I think was revealed through that process, which was probably apparent before, but then just becomes very easy to visualize, is that all of these themes are already implicit. They're already contained within that art, within those aesthetics, and within that data set, very literally speaking. And so with merely the instructions to thematize them in colors, where you give social democracy red and white armor, or you give anarcho-primitivism black and green leather armor, and so on. It's in some cases really surprising just how well they fit. And it's probably because we've taken in, just as you're saying, all of these different like PFP anime character type of people on social media that just literally look like this. Actually, like they look like they've got their little character that's in your party when you're logged into the game. So yeah, it's it was a fun process to say the least.
So, do you want to explain the color selection, and then maybe we can go into some of the individual character card types that come up in the game? Because I think the audience will get a kick out of this. So,
absolutely, yeah. Do you would you Art House Politics? I see in the chat. Actually, that was a great YouTube channel when they were making content. I really enjoyed those. That's a deep cut. Could I potentially? I'll share my screen actually to show some images here, because it might be easier if there's like a visual display. Some of
Sure.
these are like XY grids and so on. Okay,
sure.
so I'll share my screen 1 second. There we go. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna open up this shared screen. Here we go.
Oh, sure. Go ahead. Yeah. Okay. So this is, if you haven't seen it before, this is the box of the game. It's a little annoying to focus my webcam on it, but you can see the box. And on the top of this is kind of exactly what we're talking about, is this meme that has been circulating for quite a while. Many people have made this connection, not just myself. It's often depicted as, I'll show you the proper meme itself. These are subjective assessments. Because I'm the author of the game, I chose to put the left-wing characters in the good category. And if you disagree, fuck you. I'm the one who published the game, so you can make your own. You know what? It's open source. You can scan the cards, change them however you want. So the classic Dungeons and Dragons alignment grid is here overlaid with the political compass. So I'm sure anyone who has found their way to this stream is probably familiar with both of these so far. But to give just the super condensed explanation, you have the conventional XY grid for the political compass, if you're left to right axis, and then you have your authoritarian to libertarian axis, role of the state, authority versus liberty, and so on. Overlaid with that is the conventional character alignment grid from Dungeons and Dragons, where you will choose a ethical and moral alignment, being lawful, neutral, or chaotic, and in addition to that, being good, neutral, or chaotic evil. So what I did in this game is I mapped all of the different political ideologies, which is what these teenage meme posters do through like every meme they post is basically mapping different political ideologies, either of historical figures or podcasters and Twitch streamers and whatever. I did choose yes chat. I chose the classic purple because I think the contemporary yellow interpretation for libertarian right is just, it's not, it wasn't hitting the right way. So each of these characters I plotted to a specific quadrant, a box, I should say. It's no longer a quadrant in this political compass. And you can choose to play. So as we begin the game, you are choosing a political ideology, something that resonates with you. Maybe it's something that you want to try out for the first time that you're curious about. Maybe you just, you despise this ideology, you hate them the most, and so you think it would be fun to play as that character, and so on. So I'm going to take you just through the different classes that are in the game, and then I'll mention their fantasy character classes that they're paired with as part of this introduction. So lawful good is state socialism, which is the artificer, the kind of technology engineer type of character. Has a lot of abilities that synergize with both the lawful axis and the good axis. We're going to go down the good column here as we explore. We have primitive communism, and we have social democracy in the neutral good axis. Chaotic good is anarcho-communism. Now moving across the chaotic row, we have anarcho-primitivism and civil libertarian. Further over, we have anarcho-capitalism. Moving up the evil column, paleoconservatism, techno-feudalism, and then we have eco-fascism at lawful evil in the top right. And then we have civic nationalism and market socialism as the lawful neutral. Okay, so this is the whole array of characters here. So I'll stop sharing my screen now that I've kind of brought you through these different political alignments, but maybe the thing to mention or to make clear is that these political alignments, the different chaotic or lawful or good or evil, are your shared win conditions in the game. So if you were, for example, the anarcho-communist and you're in the lower left-hand corner, at some point in the game, there's going to emerge a conflict where you have to choose to either throw your lot in with the good characters, state socialism, primitive communism, social democracy, and so on, or with the chaotic characters, anarcho-primitivism, civil libertarian, and anarcho-capitalism. So the politics at the table then becomes, how much do you trust the players who have multiple alliances? Will you throw your lot in with them? Will you choose to work towards a common goal? Or might you betray your alignment? You could play as if you're working with one side of the team and then stab them in the back, go share a win condition with another side of the team. The maximum way to achieve points in the game is to get utopia. And utopia is when you are the only surviving player. So throughout the game, there are incentives to collaborate, to participate alongside one another, and then also to betray your opponents at the last moment. And this creates really interesting dynamics at the table where people will participate. They'll kind of go along with their friends as if they're working alongside them. Then they'll betray one group, throw their lot in with the other. And then at the last moment, they'll stab their friends in the back. And everybody is kind of selfishly pursuing for their own ideological goals. And for me, this is just a direct analogy to what political conflict is in the real world, is that you're always in these kind of uncomfortable alliances and coalitions that can break apart at any moment and actually do have different goals, but cooperate for a short term so long as they can advance their own interests. That's my that's the gameplay. It's very combat based, and then the competition at the table then becomes politics for the players who are having to negotiate who lives, who wins, who yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. You also align these ideologies to not just character alignments and the traditional political square chart. And man, that thing is old. I've seen that chart since the 90s. I just want to point that out. Like, it's very old.
1972, I believe, or 1967. Yeah, in the on the archive of this. Sorry, this is a deep cut, but the Rampart Journal of Individualist Thought. There's a political compass published in either 1967 or 68, and then 1972 is the world's smallest political quiz, which was a 10-question quiz that plotted you on this 4-axis. So it has cycles on the internet, but it's got even a deeper political history. I think the guy who made it was one of the co-founders of the American Libertarian Party.
I was about to say, originally the shortest political quiz was a way to con you into being libertarian when you weren't. But
if your politics can be summed up in 10 questions, it probably works as well.
I actually remember taking that. I think that was a Nolan chart, is what it was called, the political compass quiz, and it said I was a libertarian, and even then I was like, no, I'm not. Like, it's just not. But you also align these two classes. So, like, I got a kick out of the paleo conservative as a former one, being a barbarian.
Oh yeah.
So can you talk about how you picked which classes, which ideologies matched up with?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some of them are just super straightforward. So ecofascism is a crusader because the people who believe that shit literally depict crusaders in their memes with the white tabard and the red cross, and they wear the helmet and they cosplay and they do all sorts of dumb shit. So that's really direct. The anarcho-capitalist is a kind of like cute cat, which is just, I think, aesthetically self-evident of the type of images that come from those communities. The anarcho-capitalist is also the thief, because they break the law. The back of the card, the verso card for the anarcho-capitalist, is a quote from Murray Rothbard that says, "It is not the job of the law to make anyone good or moral." And so he is literally morally evil, and he's chaotic. He breaks the law. And what's really been funny, actually, is that I intended all of these as like parodies of the political ideologies. Like conceivably someone who has very different political views than mine could come to this game, get a kick out of it. Maybe they're entertained or something like that, or they just see it as a meme. They think it's entertaining. But like, I posted that with a pretty big account, and just actual internet ANCAPs were coming in and be like, "Yeah, I'm chaotic evil. This is how I identify. Like, that's my character." So it's been interesting to gauge the response. I'll kind of go around. I'll try to make a clockwise pattern here. So the paleo conservative is the barbarian. These guys are kind of, they just rush in, low intellect, whatever. The warlock is the techno-feudalist. And this is a reference to Season 3 in World of Warcraft. This is a SLSL lock, Soul Link Siphon Life, which really based around extracting soul and life, absorbing health, funneling health out of your opponent to heal yourself. So it was like slowly draining the life and the essence from your competitors. So I think of this as a kind of perfect analogy for things like Amazon and the kind of, I think techno-feudalism is a little bit of a debatable term, but this idea of big platforms that are kind of rent extracting from every facet of the economy. It seems to map in a low resolution style. So that to me feels very much like the warlock. The civil libertarian is your frost mage. A lot of control, high damage, but also very brittle. So this is, I think, kind of how they behave in debate, where they, the card for the deck, I'll just give a few examples, is that they play things like, well, actually, they give you a hot take back to back with a non sequitur, and then they try to checkmate, steelman, and control the board by distracting and interrupting you, essentially. But if you tackle them head on, they're very weak, very brittle. They get outcompeted, outdebated very efficiently. Anarcho-primitivism is a really a duration type of class. So there's a lot of heal over time abilities. It precedes human civilization before and after. This is obviously the druid in this case, right? They're nomadic bands of hunter-gatherers. I think for people even who are not interested in any of the political stuff and just like gaming, it's a very clear direction that, druids are anarcho-primitivists, live outside of society, and so on. The going around our counterclockwise alignment here, the anarcho-communist is the cleric in this game. So the priest in World of Warcraft, the cleric in Dungeons and Dragons, low armor class, primarily a healer class, but also very capable at dealing damage and has a lot of utility built into it. So it's a high skill cap class. It's not ultra durable. The quote on the back is something from Peter Kropotkin that says, I'm not sure if I'm going to remember it exactly off the top of my head, but I think it says, morality or compassion is a natural faculty of man, something like that. Moving up the up the axis, you guys can interrupt me anytime you want, but I'll really nerd out in this game ad infinitum if you let me. Primitive communism is the monk class. There's a quote in the back from James C. Scott that civilization thus far has been a process of internal colonization. Relatively easy to play. I've played as monk, I've played as cleric, I've played as a barbarian, even a little bit. Not something I would pick for myself, but in playing characters that you don't necessarily identify with, you do tend to learn a little bit about yourself. You or at least can empathize or understand with how someone else acts and sees the situation. So there is still a utility to that. In the same quadrant for neutral good is social democracy, who is the warrior. The warrior has his key ability in his deck is called Labor Strike. Pretty proud of that one. And that is his basic ability that is inexhaustible. He can play it from his hand every single time. In the game, in class fantasy, physical abilities, physical attacks, like hitting someone with a sword or a mace and so on, is analogous to labor in the real world. Magical abilities, the Arthur C. Clarke quote, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Anything that has to do with technology in today's contemporary society is, technology is magic in the game space. So techno-feudalism will cast abilities like Taylorism and logistics that magically drain life from their opponents. Okay, so going around our clock here, state socialism, artificer. I think we've made it the whole way around, excluding, the last two. Market socialism is the ranger in this case. So it's the kind of physical damage dealing class, but it's a little bit different because it's also got range. And then the healing paladin is your civic nationalist. So that's our kind of full circle of the political compass here.
I noticed you did not come up with a true centrist class.
That's okay. That's neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is a necromancer, and it sits a true neutral, and then no character can actually be allied with neoliberalism.
Got it.
Yeah. But it can resurrect fallen players as zombies. So it's the Fisher quote. Neoliberalism is a zombie maker, or is converting living labor to dead labor. The zombies it makes are us. It's just a direct
So the villain of the game is the center.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So it's a large complex game. So there's 12 classes in the box here in the 90 card deck. I
Mhm.
designed the game. I'm going to make an expansion pack for next year. This is something that I've been working on. I started making games and stuff when I was in like middle school, high school. So I just kind of elaborated on a lot of the math and stuff that I had done in the past. And what I'll do for probably next year is release the expansion pack, the neoliberal turn, where neoliberalism is then a character. It's an NPC. No one can play as neoliberalism.
Perfect.
The
Perfect.
class.
description.
It is. I mean, right? If you're going to pick an ideology that's an NPC, it's neoliberalism, and every character has to gang up on them. And then once neoliberalism has been defeated, all the ideologies can kind of compete amongst themselves for who achieves utopia, has domination, and so on. I should say I'm inspired by the YouTuber JReg, who made that Centricide series with these parodies of different political ideologies. Yeah, he's a friend, and I think his work is a big part of the inspiration for some of these characters too.
Yeah. So let's talk about the ability cards, because I have to admit, when I was looking at them, they made me laugh like really hard. So for example, you have with the civic libertarian, the well actually, and the hot take card, which I feel like is like, I don't know. What
I can show you. I could show
go
you a
ahead.
few. If you want, I can show you. I just have some I didn't put it together anything too fancy here, but I can show you a few slides of the examples of some of the decks too.
Yeah, let's do that.
If that's okay. Yeah, let me pull up this first one here, the civil libertarian deck. Oops, sorry. I'll turn on my slideshow and then sharing my screen. Here we go. Yeah, the well actually card is the basic ability for the libertarian. So he's playing this, infinitely. There's single use abilities. Your cooldown, these are your action buttons. You use it once in the game. You throw it to your graveyard, similar to Magic the Gathering. If you've done Dungeons and Dragons combat and you've played Magic the Gathering, you've got all the toolkit to be able to do this. It's not too difficult to learn, but if you haven't played those games, you might be in for a bit of a learning curve. So the well actually ability is a channeled ability. He's using it every time. Hot take, instant ability, damage dealing. This is our civil libertarian inspired by the Gadsden snake flag, where he's got this kind of reptile on top of the yellow background. The anarcho-primitivist has an ability called touch grass, which pretty proud of that one. I really thought, there's 90 cards in the deck, and so I made a lot of like stupid meme jokes, probably to entertain myself at a certain point. So touch grass and rewild. He's got a few other good ones in there, but I'll show you just the ones I've got on the screen here. Techno feudalism has Prime Day, which is an instant damage dealing attack. and Shadow Ban. So Shadow Ban is a very powerful ability where if you're casting a channeled ability, which is something you put into play at a 90-degree turn, you play it into the board, and it takes a full turn rotation for it to come into play. So you're kind of announcing your target to the board. There's opportunities if people kind of interrupt what you're doing, they stun you, incapacitate you, and so on. You may not be able to complete the cast. So Shadow Ban is not a full stun for a full rotation. It just interrupts what they're doing for that turn. And then I'll bring you through some of the decks here for anarcho-communism. His basic ability is called Retweet. Retweet is an ability that can be used to heal or to deal damage. It is more effective when it's used to heal, and it is slightly less effective when used to deal damage, but it still can do that. On the Verso card that we have here, this is the back of the card for the anarcho-communist, here mapped to the cleric. We have the quote from Kropotkin. I guess one of the things that I wanted to do with the game was to try and express all of these different interactions as like math equations in some way. So that meant creating interesting dynamics with the mechanics of the game. We're getting into the single-use cards from the anarcho-communist here, and he has, please educate yourself. which is a rather powerful damage dealing ability, although it does deal reflexive damage to yourself as well. So you have a little bit of RNG here with your D8 rolls, D8s and D12s. There's a bit of randomization, but throughout the game, I would say that there is like specific classes that blend well together. So as we go through these decks, you can find different synergies between the different characters. We have Cancel, which is his fear ability, fears your opponent for a full duration. And then the rest of his defensive abilities here: Solidarity, Dispel, and Perseverance. The titling strategy for these were to take things that were from the worlds of politics and also from the worlds of fantasy games and try and mix the different titles. And in some cases, they're very clear, where Solidarity comes from the political discourse and Dispel comes from fantasy games. And in other cases, they are less clear, where you may find an ability that you're not completely sure whether that emerged from politics or the game space. And so part of the fun is trying to find those points of overlap. I'll show you one more deck here from the Civil Libertarian that we mentioned before. He's got his, ability, a quote from Glenn Greenwald on the back: "Surveillance breeds conformity." And he's got his hot take, non sequitur, Interrupt, Checkmate, and Steelman. That's the ability. That's the deck for Civil Libertarian. Each character has 6 cards, unique abilities that they use to interact with the rest of them. And then I'll stop sharing my screen here.
So you're already planning
adjusting
an expansion of this. What are you adding to the game other than the NPC necromancer of neoliberalism that no player can touch? But
That's yeah. Well, it's I run a constant publishing schedule. I show art, and then I run an arts organization. So this has been like a kind of ongoing side project for me that I just have a lot of fun doing. And I had initially planned the game to include all of these different things, 16 total characters instead of 12, and then also have the boss, neoliberalism. And I thought, to make it a little bit more manageable, logistically speaking, or maybe computationally speaking, I'm not sure what the word would be, but 12 characters, each of which has 6 cards. The deck is, I think there's 86 characters and abilities all combined. When you tweak one of those things, the cascading implications become just like an enormous math problem. So trying to balance all of the abilities to not bite off more than I could chew, I put the Necromancer, the neoliberalism NPC, in the following version that I'm building now. And there's going to be 4 additional characters that, as you might have noticed, in the extreme quadrants of the political compass, there's 1 class that you can play as rather than 2. So the additional ones will be in the top left, fully automated luxury communism. In the bottom left, the chaotic good corner, we have the post left, who's kind of the inverse of the cleric, the shadow priest, rather than the anarcho-communist priest. So he's more of a damage dealer than a healer, although they share a kind of synergy and an overlap. In the libertarian right, the chaotic evil quadrant, you have transhumanism, which is your undead knight, death knight, and so on. And then in the top right, there is the neo-monarchist. So the neo-monarchists of these kind of, network state right accelerationist people. Yeah.
So Nick Land, basically.
That kind of shit. Yeah.
Yeah. As your post leftist, which post left are we talking about? Are we talking about the odds post left of the anarchist world,
Right.
or the post left of 2 years ago that was like Angela Nagel did nothing wrong? Like, which one?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm a purist when it comes to the post left stuff, and so what it meant for me was like kind of
Bob Black.
weaving together of like, Bob Black, John Zerzan, like a kind of influence of Ann Prim, but just like insurrection rather than reform. The kind of Max Stirner type of guys. Those type of guys. So the post-left stuff, I think the definition has basically drifted in the last few years to the point where it's like it's not repairable. But I don't know. I think all of those people came to like internet meme culture just later, and so they didn't know that there was a contested definition of post left in my mind. To me, it was like really clear that it was like this kind of insurrectionary subculture around like a union of egoists and
Yeah.
things like that.
Come out of the zine culture of the 90s, I know what post left is, and I also had Bob Black personally call me a Stalinist once. But
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
this was, and if I tell you why, it's even funnier because
Tell me why.
I said once to him that there were plenty of hunter-gatherer groups that had some notion of authority, and he called me a Stalinist. And, I was like, okay,
Wow.
Bob. But
We're all Stalinists now.
Well, you know what? You're going to have to play each other in class fantasy and find out who was right. That's the only way to settle the dispute.
Yeah. I could see the funny thing about this. I definitely see these things. It's interesting how fast these ideologies though develop because
right.
I mean, you get actually both. This can cover both the politics and the game design, but you have like. I would love to see like if there's if you end up doing like many editions of this, if some of these classes actually drift on the board over time. Because I kind of feel like that actually happens, and I'm like, okay, so where would I put some really weird shit, like something that combines things from two opposed quadrants, like I don't know, anarcho-monarchism, which is a real tendency that I've actually seen in real life, or patriotic socialism of the MAGA communist variety, or
a lot of those
like
nowadays.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I think that's fun, and it was a real struggle to constrain it to 12. And probably as you grow, like part of the fun is the like literal expansion of the Overton window. That's I think that's a great idea. I think it would be fun. I haven't written this, or I just think it's a fun meme, but like making a scenario encounter version called Escaping the Vampire Castle, which is I mean, come on, it's like right there. It's right there.
Oh man. This is yet another time where I have to mention my original OG claim to left fame was publishing that fucking article. But yeah. I think it's a fun concept, and I think it's interesting to actually think of this. It is interesting to think of the role people play when they adopt these ideologies as a kind of mediation for whatever politics they're trying to try on until they get into the actual political world. And the one thing about some of these ideologies, for example, when we talk about post-left anarchism or whatever, like they come in and out. Like post-left stuff has come in and out several times in my lifetime. Like Bob Black has gone from cool to uncool to cool to uncool. It's probably definitely uncool right now, but many times. And I find that interesting. I also find I like that you put civil libertarians because it's hard to find actual libertarians anymore. They've all become something else. I mean, you could you'd have a lot of fun with explaining why certain classes are not in there. But how has the public response to this been so far?
Well, it's interesting. So I'm between the art world and the internet world. A lot of people feel antagonized by the game, which I think is good. Yeah. I mean, for me, I'm like, I'll just say I'm pro role playing and everything that people do online and kind of like experimenting with silly ideologies and meme posting and whatever. But if you're like a grown man and you are a monarchist, like this is not a serious engagement. Or you're someone who's very serious and is a political opponent of mine. So yeah, I want to say that like what I had hoped to do through satire, parody, and poking fun at these people is to like, success for me with the game would be if someone sees someone posting in a kind of ridiculous type of way, they would say like, "Oh, this person's just playing class fantasy." Like there's an actual game that you can play. That's what you're doing, like saying that people are LARPing and whatever. Yeah, so I would say that the response from like people who are familiar with my work, all the stuff that I've written, published on the topic, podcasts, newsletters, everything, they love it. They think it's hilarious. From people who are, I would say like mainstream conservatives, they're really mad about it. They don't particularly like it. The anarcho-capitalists are entertained with it because they are, just self-identified chaotic evil people. So that's accurate. And I think the most interesting, because I mean I've posted this in a few different places. The thing that always sparks a kind of vigorous debate in the comments is the state socialist being in lawful good. And people are like, "Oh, you think Stalin and Mao were lawful and good and whatever," and then yeah, it just inevitably turns into like every political debate you've ever seen on the internet, and it's rather entertaining.
All of a sudden, we're arguing about Kronstadt instead of playing a game, and
Isn't that the objective anyway?
It's the objective to argue about Kronstadt. That feels like it's definitely a ritual that we've done on the internet for 30 years. So yeah, I find this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say we're pushing up against the hour, so I wanted to ask you some kind of technical questions.
Sure.
Where are people going to be able to get this game?
The game is available on MetaLabel, which is a site that recently launched. There's, I think, in the Substack piece that we, thank you for linking the URL in the chat. I linked a Substack piece that I think I sent you before in the chat, which is my kind of longer description about it. But the game can be purchased through MetaLabel. I'm shipping the whole thing out myself. There's like a bunch of them. So I'll probably have this for a few years, release it incrementally as a project, just because I really care about it and have fun with this process. So yeah, they're all going to be going out in like mid-May. So in the next 2 weeks,
did you hear that,
up to here.
Chat? Everybody, get on there and purchase your copy now, before it becomes mainstream. Before Joshua gets a contract with Asmodee to sell this game and makes millions of dollars. He becomes the new Monopoly man. But yeah, there should be a link in the description. So make sure everybody go out there and support this project. I think that's one really important thing about gaming, is that because the technology has changed and it's a lot easier to publish a game nowadays. You can get cards made and things like this. There is a whole load of games that are being made now, and those games are going to depend on people buying them, right? So if you don't get it for yourself, get it as a gift for someone who likes games. Tell people about it, because that's how these independent games do well. Word of mouth, and people supporting the artists. So even if
I think it's a great holiday activity. I have a dream where you get together with your family over Thanksgiving and everybody fights about politics at the table. I think this would be a great way to resolve all those debates.
An icebreaker event.
And then when state socialism wins, everyone feels like really uncomfortable, but perhaps it was right the whole time. It would be interesting if that happened.
Do you have a question, Zal?
Yeah.
What's your question?
Do you know SpongeBob is the greatest movie in the whole entire city?
Well, there you go. SpongeBob is the greatest movie in the whole entire city. Okay. In the city of Springfield.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for that addition. Anything else you want to add to that? Do you want to play games?
I don't have a game. It's a jungle game.
Well, you do have a jungle then that you got from the library today.
Yeah.
What else do you like?
Tino has some cards and some boards.
Well, you like cards and boards.
I just have one board.
Just has one board. Exactly. So to re-emphasize that, everybody, I expect Joshua to be messaging Jason to say, hey, after that appearance on This Is Revolution, I got at least 3 orders for the game, because I think it's really important that we support independent game designers, because as we've discussed, well, as we used to discuss on gaming materialists, one of the things that is the death of gaming is these big monopoly companies that end up with very stagnant rule sets that just really undermine the dynamism of game design. So we should all be supporting independent games workers.
Yeah, we're not talking about warlocks of the ocean or anything, but yes. So it's I mean, it's actually an interesting time for these sorts of games. These kind of card games. I mean,
SpongeBob style.
yeah,
That's good.
These sorts of games, I think are good fun, and I like anything. I mean, yes, this is entertainment with petit bourgeois characteristics, but what are you going to do? I would also add that like the gaming industry right now is in an interesting crossroads because of the aforementioned warlocks of the ocean having a lot of controversies in the last year. Kickstarter seeming to be almost overran with stuff. I can't keep up with it anymore. And the electronification of gaming, which has been ironically a good way for games, for these kinds of role-playing games to die, believe it or not, for people like one of the great ironies of the 90s is both Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition and White Wolf both basically sacrificed themselves on the altar of trying to make themselves a massive online role-playing game preemptively, and in both cases it ended bad, although Wizards was obviously able to recuperate that in 5e, and they've been doing that now for a decade. But it does seem like if current trends continue, we are finally being forced to head that way, because Hasbro's definitely monetized themselves that way this year. So I think supporting these kinds of games really sorts of matters if you care about there still being a kind of niche thing. And yeah, I mean, that's what I would say too. What are your takes on the state of the gaming industry right now?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Joshua?
I should say thank you guys so much. It's really generous, and I really appreciate what you're doing here, because for me, like, it was always really clear that the game space was like a space where the left politics was very present to me. You know, if you look at in-game economies, I wrote a piece about this. I did a video on this a long time ago, that World of Warcraft guilds are structured as worker cooperatives. And there's a lot of people who come from particularly online gaming the last few years who just have like the worst political opinions about everything. And then
Probably EVE Online players. That's the true anarcho-capitalist.
that is
game.
indeed.
My
Yeah.
my friend who played EVE Online long-term trolled a corporation only to steal all their money and transfer it to another corporation in EVE
You
Online.
love to see it.
So if you want to be an evil person, play EVE Online. But like you say, a lot of these fantasy RPGs are like very cute and friendly.
Yeah, and as
They're
much as
very
I am,
equitable, yeah.
and as much as I am a fan of old school D&D, and I'm a partisan of OSE and old school gaming, I will also admit some of the worst people in the world of the barbarian class in your game are in that space too. So like, it's just like it's like, okay, so thank you, Pat Buchanan, who also likes 1978 Redbox. Have a great day. Like, so yeah, but it is interesting because I do think, I mean, for example, the LARP insult in for these ideologies, I mean, I found interesting because it caught on around, I think, about 2010, 2011 when we started throwing it around. And I remember it kind of caught on organically, and then I realized, oh, a lot of us were LARPers in high school, and like we're insulting our younger selves, and that's why
Whoa.
like it caught on so fast.
Oh,
Like,
that's great. I hadn't thought of that before. That's like, wow. They're making fun of their younger cringy selves, actually.
yeah, because we would talk about it, and I was like, hey, this metaphor has occurred to a lot of different people. I didn't think LARPing was a major activity in the general public. Oh, we all play vampire in the late 90s. Okay.
Yeah,
Right,
and also,
right.
yeah, no, but we all played vampire in the late 90s, but we thought the people who did the live action role play vampire were lame.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like, oh yeah, we're just playing regular Vampire the Masquerade, not like those weirdos who dress up for their masquerade. Vampire
and play rock, paper, scissors all the time.
Yeah,
Like,
play rock, paper, scissors all the time. Exactly. Well, gentlemen, we are at an hour now, but Joshua, it has been a real pleasure to have you on TIR tonight. See Derek Vaughn, the angry badger off the left, Doug's Lane's heterosexual life partner, and the king of the Discord. And if you pay him on his Patreon, he will shout at you on Discord. He's kind of like a dom for left comms. That's Vaughn's main thing. If he was a reasonably attractive woman, he would be an excellent dominatrix.
if I was a reasonably attractive woman, I would have a very niche OnlyFans.
Very niche.
A very, very niche OnlyFans. It would be ideological domination as as a fetish category.
I think that would do pretty well, actually.
I think it would too.
I think Maoist struggle session,
right?
OnlyFans, where you have to do a struggle session with someone dressed in a Red Alert 3 woman's outfit, would be really where it's at on left wing OnlyFans. But it's been a real pleasure.
Thanks, gang.
We hope to speak to you again, Joshua. Maybe Vaughn and I will bring another gaming materialists, ad hoc gaming materialists out down the line, because I do have the hankering to get discourse back on and talk about why grown men are crying about girls being introduced to their favorite faction of Warhammer 40,000 are having a mental breakdown about literally coming up with conspiracy theories that Games Workshop, under the pressure of BlackRock and Amazon, have introduced female Adeptus Custodes, ruining Warhammer forever.
Really?
Yes.
Wow,
yes, this is the real thing.
This is the real thing. This is the real thing. They're testing the waters so that they can bring in
BlackRock
female
is like
Marines.
woke, and they're pushing politics into gaming or something like that. Is that
basically
brilliant?
Anti-woke cultural commentary is basically complaining about everything is woke and sucks, unless it's something that like turns out to be good, and then it's not woke, even if you declared it woke before. If it turns out to be good and popular, it is not woke. So woke be bad. But yes, complaining about the gender of Space Marines is like the key issue for a significant portion of the gaming left. I mean, it's really, you can't make this you can't make this shit up. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, how much do you think Warcraft memes affected the paleoconservative art design that the AI came up with? Like,
so much. It's all. I mean, there's just such a deep history to all that stuff. I gotta say a lot.
Yeah, I've often thought of paleoconservatism as like Warcraft in a bad-fitting Brooks Brothers suit. That's like. Anyway, we've hit the hour, so
we've hit the hour.
Yeah,
that's enough from us, White Devils, this evening. Tomorrow, TIR will be back with your usually more melanated co-host. Well, of course, C. Derek Vaughn is black, as we do know.
Oh boy! All right,
but he just has vitiligo. So,
yes.
Yeah,
I will
he's-
also be on a special episode this Saturday on CLR James. So building up to the DC CLR James special that we are doing with Daniel Tutt's group.
Whoa! Sorry, I have to respond to this.
Mhm.
Springfield makes Rolla look like Paris. No, Rolla makes Springfield look like Paris, which is sad. Yeah. But yeah, they have the mining school in Rolla. But yeah, we have a special CLL James thing coming on at the weekend. What else is going on Vodville? Like I said at the outset, if you want to hear a 3-hour struggle set, no, it's not a struggle session. We don't.
Yeah,
have
it started off as a very calm discussion about Dune, and then we lost our shit about activism.
About activism. About lapping activism too.
Yes,
So,
exactly. It's about LARPing activism as opposed to actual activism. We weren't talking about like the protest today or anything.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What else? There is. Yeah, that's about it. I haven't done much podcasting or anything to tell any. Look at this. What is this going on here? So, I haven't done much recently, so you can't see me many places. So don't worry about it. I'll be fine. I will probably making sarcastic comments on things, as that is my only outlet of anger these days. But you can still watch TIR, and you can still watch the hourly hate on Vaughn vlog. So with that, Joshua, anything you want to tell us about anything you're doing upcoming? Anything we should be
Oh no,
paying
this is great. I'm find me on Substack and Instagram. That's mostly where I am. Yeah, but this was awesome. Thanks guys
and again,
so much
one more
for
time,
bringing
guys.
me on.
Buy the game.
I appreciate that. Thanks, gang.
And when you buy the game, tweet at TIR that you just bought the game so we can demonstrate it to our managers in the Soros Foundation that we are actually helping propagate Bolshevism amongst the youth correctly. And with that, fellow people, we are we out? I think we're out.
Yeah.